you can see the slides, I hope. So part of the challenge that I face is showing the slides, but also there's a unique thing that we have here, is we actually have to admit each person into the seminar. So I'm trying to find out who's waiting and let them in. So there's quite a few people who are just arriving now into the seminar. So you'll have to excuse me while I admit them into the seminar session. So welcome to the Brand and Marketing Communications Seminar 1. And so just a bit of background about what we're going to do in the seminars, and hoping that you have reviewed the first lecture, at least the video online, which is on the Moodle site. And I suppose everybody has access to the Moodle site. Is that correct? And had a chance to have a look at it? If not, suggest you do that after the lecture, but ahead of next week's lecture, you should do your reading, do the seminar preparation, as well as watch the video of the lecture for that day. So what the purpose of the seminar is really to reinforce some of the ideas that we cover, some of the frameworks and models in brand marketing communications, and give some live examples so that you're able to actually apply these ideas and critically evaluate some areas that we think are interesting or of importance to your understanding of the topic. So I'm still letting in people as we go through the seminar, and as I introduce myself. Some of you may have met me before, others not. My name is Charles Savell. I have 15 years, maybe 20 years. I forget how long I've been in the industry. I worked for the Walt Disney Company, as well as a consultant for the Big Four. So looked at a lot of strategic issues related to brands. As you know, the Walt Disney Company is one of the largest media companies in the world. And so familiar with some of the issues that a company would be concerned about when establishing their brand, but also the message that they want to send out to their consumers. So that's a little bit about me. Let me just go through the lecture slides quickly. Well, not quickly, but just briefly, because you're going to be doing all the discussions and the analysis amongst yourselves. So let me move on to the next slide. Actually, the next slide is sort of a nice view of Red Bull from space. But just to go over what we're going to do in the first exercise, the idea here is I would like you to introduce yourselves to each other. So it's sort of a meet and greet opportunity to find out about each other. And then we are hoping that you will sort of have a discussion and be able to talk about the other person. So, and in your discussion, the purpose of this is really to find out more about who's on the cohort, what their areas of interest are, and then to be able to present that back to the group. So I had suggested possibly, because we're in an online forum, instead of discussing it amongst yourselves, rather what we can do is put a little discussion in the chat forum about the person that you've met. So that's the idea of the first exercise. And the second exercise is where you're going to be working in, I'm hoping to be putting you into bigger groups, but anybody recognize this ad? You can turn on your mics and say yes, or write a note in the chat section. Anybody recognize this ad and what it was about?
Yeah, I definitely recognize it.
Okay, you want to give the group a little bit of introduction to
Background.
if they
Yeah.
haven't heard about it and what it represents.
So as from what I know, this is Colin Kaepernick. It's a close up on his face. Who he used to be an NFL quarterback in the United States, and then he started kneeling during the national anthem to like provide what's it called, awareness about police brutality, like to bring awareness to that. And so a lot of people were torn on the issue whether that's the right thing to do or not. And the season ended, he ended up without a contract, and so he's still been like active in the role about increasing awareness about police brutality to minorities, specifically black people. But everybody at first was scared to back him and his cause. And then it seems like all of a sudden out of nowhere, Nike released this ad campaign with Colin Kaepernick as the head, and like just about the bringing awareness to the police brutality and stuff like that, and for a good cause, basically. And he was the face of it because he suffered by losing his job and stuff like that because of it.
Great, Milan. That's a sort of a nice little summary. So part of what in this course, why we think it's important in brand marketing communications is the impact that it has on the brand itself, right? So one of the things that I want you to think about and consider is, what was Nike? What happened to Nike as a brand as a result? Does anybody have any ideas? You can also post in the chat section, but just wanted to get you warmed up for the discussion, really. Can anybody think about Nike as a brand and its impact? Are they taking a bold stance? Is this the first time that Nike as a brand has taken a bold stance in supporting an athlete? So Milan, you have raised some very good points, but I'd like you to maybe elaborate a little bit more. Think about the impact on the brand.
Yeah. So
and both positive and negative, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can. So with since at first it seemed like Colin Kaepernick didn't really have anybody backing him up when he was still a player, still under contract, kneeling during the national anthem, trying to bring all of this spotlight to the issue at hand. And then nobody big really did anything with it until it seems like Nike did and decided they wanted to take the leap and back him and make him like the poster child for this specific ad campaign. And so the positives would be because it's kind of hard to say as like one American trying to generalize the rest of the US, but a lot of people thought it was a good thing that they're fighting the good fight, basically. But a lot of people on the other side as well as the negatives, like as soon as this ad came out, there was a lot of people burning their Nike shoes, saying they were never going to buy Nike ever again and stuff like that. So you have kind of two sides of one coin on how people apparently Nike's stock dropped after this ad came out for a couple days, but then it rebounded back up to a new high.
Hello. Did you get into the group?
Yeah, I got in fine. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody coming out of the groups now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. So who's going to tell me about somebody else they met and something interesting? Anybody? Katie? Martina? Who did you meet?
Hi, I met Adriana.
Adriana, okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Adriana? Okay. There she is. I
Okay.
see
We
Adriana.
were in for Adriana, Katie,
You met
and
Katie.
and
Uh,
oh, I can't remember the name. A guy from India, I think.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about anybody that you met in the group? Did they tell you anything about them? What, about their background? Anything interesting?
Okay. So to all of them, yeah, okay. We talk about our background. For example, I remember that Adriana studied. I can't remember. Studied, I think, marketing.
Okay.
This was a lot of information.
No, I know. I cut it short. I only gave you 10 minutes really to introduce. So I'll give you a little bit longer next time we break out, but you're going to meet somebody new next time. Adriana, who did you meet?
I met Katie. We're in the same group with Martina.
Yeah.
And she's still in the US working in Tiffany at the moment. She's at work right now.
Oh, Katie is. Yes, Katie, we met the other day, right?
Yes.
You were telling us you have a really interesting job. Are you
I do, yeah.
Are you based in New York then?
No, I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm at a store, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you raised, which masters are you doing? The luxury marketing or?
I'm actually just doing base marketing. I didn't want to
okay.
choose, just in case I didn't want to go into that later. I didn't want to choose that and kind of pigeonhole myself into that. So I'm just doing basic marketing.
Very good, very good. Yeah, because I it's a particularly interesting brand, and because we have a a luxury marketing masters, I think you would probably excel with all your background and experience in that.
I think so too. I feel like it'd be like cheating though.
Well, you still cover all the same stuff anyway, but
Yeah.
I mean, you have something interesting to add. But it's great. So it was good to meet you and welcome aboard. Who else? There were plenty of other people here. How about Paz? Paz?
Yeah, hi.
Who did you meet today?
So I met Milan, Linda, and Julie.
Okay.
I have a really bad memory, so sorry that I can't remember everything.
That's okay.
So Milan from the US, as we all know, he really liked Nike and their ads. And sorry, I don't remember your first degree. Maybe you can share with all of us. And Julie,
I see Julie over there. Julie, who did you meet in the group?
Great.
So I met
Julie, I'll help you out here. I'll give you a break. Julie,
I met Paz, Milan, and Linda, and I cheated and I actually wrote down what they said, so I'd remember.
Well, that's perfectly fine to write down what they said. You don't have to memorize. It's not a memory test.
Yeah.
It's just it's a meet and greet session.
Yeah.
And to find out a little bit more about your cohort, what their background is and what they're interested in terms of future careers, etc., in marketing. So an interesting exercise, clearly. There's plenty of others here. Some of them have their videos. I know I see Milan. Who else? Milan, who did you meet? Milan?
I mean, I met.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly, firstly?
To be honest with you, my whole life I've heard it pronounced probably 15 different ways.
Okay.
So you cannot mispronounce it.
Okay, so anything goes, right?
Whatever comes natural to you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so who did you meet in your group?
I was in the group with Julie, Paz, and Linda. So I didn't take notes.
You didn't take notes? You've got a good memory though, right?
Okay,
I'm guessing.
So let's try it out. So with Paz, she's from Israel, and I want to say she just recently finished her first degree, and because in Israel they have to go, I want to say they have to go in the army for 3 years. Is that? Yes. Okay. Cool. So army for 3 years.
We knew you had a good memory. Right?
I try. It's kind of selective, but I know her favorite ad is this ad that's in Israel where they have what's it called? Famous singers like that are big at that time do a different rendition of a traditional song for an advert, and then I want to say they do it every year, but it seems like they just do it every certain amount of time. Yeah, okay. And so it's like and then everybody usually likes the song or something like that because it's a new little flavor, because it's new big names singing a song that's just like the whole country likes.
Paz, is he right? Did he get it right?
Yes, exactly. It's like kind
Okay,
of festival around this song.
Okay, good. Right. So I think a lot of you had a chance to sort of meet others in this group, which is good because, you know, the seminar sets are where we get together, we share ideas, we discuss ideas, and a great place to learn. So we call it sort of peer-to-peer learning, right? We learn from others. So did anybody get a chance to discuss Nike yet or not yet? That's what you want to get into. That's what you want to discuss, right? If not, we feel it's a sort of an interesting and at the same time controversial ad in a sense, right? There's a lot of controversial advertising out there. Can anybody sort of, Aditi, do you think you can turn off your mic, please? Or somebody's got their mic on, we can hear what's going on in the background. Before we get into the discussion on Nike, however you want to pronounce it, can anybody think of any other controversial ads, both print advertising, televised advertising, any other platform that you can think of? But can anybody think of any other controversial types of topics that have maybe had an impact on brands? Julie? Milan?
I think there was a Gillette one, and they did it about like men looking like something about like looking at other men and trying to get them to do right, and that caused like mass controversy.
Okay. Yes, I mean, so we could probably have lots of examples. That's probably one example. So what types of factors do you think some of these are social issues, political issues? How would we categorize some of these controversial advertising? Which category is it? Is it it impacts socially people's beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs? What does it impact most?
I think it's usually social.
Social issues?
Yeah, most brands try to stay out of politics, if at all possible.
Yeah, a good point, right? Why would they want to stay out of politics? How any thought about that?
It can get messy. I guess it's quite opinion based.
It is, right? Quite divisive. When we talk about social, so when you talk about social, what is a social issue that may be controversial? An example. I mean, Julie maybe gave an example, right?
Yeah, I think it's like sexual harassment. I think that's what it was going on about, and that's probably quite a touchy subject. So that's why I think it went so wrong.
Mm-hmm. So what lessons do you think we can learn from some of these social, political, religious, environmental? Why is it important that on the reverse side, to be sort of the devil's advocate here, are there positive things that could come out of being controversial in advertising?
Gets your attention. Whether it's good or bad, it gets your attention.
Gets your attention, right? And what is the next step? And you think about, it gets your attention. Then what do you do? Do you engage with that advertising? Do you?
Sometimes people can stop consume the product because of it. In Israel, for example, we have a brand of a beer that it's the main sentence of the commercial is drink beer because you are a man. And also I drink beer. So I don't consume this beer since then, at least less because it's tasty. But it can cause also harm, but sometimes, I don't know, also good because people start talking about it, and then they're not in a good way, but sometimes, I don't know, maybe the coronavirus now with the Corona beer, it's also kind of example, because people talking about it, but they less consume the product. So
yeah, that's a really interesting one. In brand market, in IPOM we covered that. You in IPOM as well, right? We covered that beer. So some people think initially the Corona sales just plummeted. They dropped because people thought, oh, maybe, I'm going to get this virus if I drink the beer, right? And then people sort of said, oh, maybe it's a cure for the virus, right? I mean, people think in different ways in a sense, right? So looking at these different factors, I mean, I think put yourself in the shoes of a marketing manager or a brand manager. Do you see both positive and negative in being controversial, or supporting controversial advertising, or do you feel that one should be neutral? So something that I put out to everybody, really, in discussion.
I think today, it's impossible for companies to remain neutral, because if you remain neutral, then it's like, well, then you're not reacting at all, and then that upsets a group of people. But then if you do react, then that upsets another group of people. So it is kind of a catch-22. But I find that companies are better off being reactive to a situation than not, because then at least they're getting, they're getting their name out there, or, all of that for another group of people, or they're getting the advertisement from it. So I think it's usually better to just react than it is to not react.
Absolutely.
Or just stay neutral.
I think that's a very good point, because, you think of the times that we're in now, and how important it has become for companies to show their concern or their validation of problems or issues in society, and how we're going to resolve those, and what the role of companies and organizations are, or brands for that matter, in times like this, right? Because what they do now is going to have a huge impact of how people view the brand in the future, is how they're reacting to the situation that we're in now, and we all know what we're talking about, right? So I mean, it's every brand. I mean, look at Tiffany, for example, right? Has Tiffany taken a stance, or are they showing how possibly they could get involved in?
Yes. So the company itself is actually really big on protecting the environment, because so much of our products come from the environment, metals, diamonds, all the above. So when Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, like 2 years into his presidency, Tiffany released this whole thing that was like, we don't stand with this. Like, we're going to keep with the Paris Climate Agreement, even if our government doesn't. So they definitely take stances on important issues.
Sorry. Anybody? That's a great. We would never think that Tiffany would become involved in this, these types of issues, right? Political issues, and that's actually really interesting. We're actually learning something about how luxury brands react to sort of a crisis, a global crisis or global pandemic, in a sense, right? The environmental is slightly different from the pandemic, but it's still a global issue. So that's really actually quite interesting and valuable insight. Anybody else have anybody else work for some interesting brands that they want to tell us how their brands have reacted to the current pandemic? Anybody? Anybody currently working for a brand?
Work for a company.
Which one?
The name is Legami. It's an Italian brand.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about the brand and how they are reacting to either the pandemic or other political, social issues?
Okay, actually, it is a small company. It's not like Tiffany or any other big brands, but they reacted to COVID-19 in like the most of other Italian companies. So with measures like stay at home or we worked from home. They didn't express any political concept, but they, for example, make advertisement on social network, on Instagram and Facebook, like to maintain distance with images of our product. We created masks. So we expressed this kind of concept, but not political ones.
Yeah. So your company came to decided that they were going to do something in a sense, like making masks, or what does the company actually do? Your company, what is its main product?
Okay, it's in the stationery world. So, for example, diaries, calendars, or pencil cases, and all these kind of things. Yeah, and we also.
And your company.
Yeah.
So does your company have manufacturing plants then?
Yes.
Do they manufacture?
Yes.
In Italy?
Yes, in Italy. And we converted the production in masks and sanitizers as well during this period.
Great, yeah. So that's actually, this is what we're talking about, how people will remember your company and your brand in the future, in a sense, because they've been proactive about an issue or a social issue, a crisis, and we need to remember that is really important for sustainability of a brand, longevity of brands. How they can adapt to consumers and the external environment that they are operating in. That's great. Thank you very much, Martina, and thank you, Katie, and Adriana. Anybody else got some interesting comments? Where's Milan? He's disappeared.
So actually,
yes, let's hear from Milan. Yeah.
So actually, I was working with Comedy Central India, which is like an entertainment channel. So we were doing a lot of online, social media posts about social distancing, about staying at home, and we were running special programs and marathons on television on the channel so that people are entertained enough to stay at home. And even during those programs, we used to pop up a message saying that, you should stay at home, wear your masks, use a sanitizer. So we were consciously, telling the people, the audience, that you should be doing these things to, avoid catching the virus.
Very good. So your company was proactive, and
yes.
Customers and consumers will remember your company in the future as being proactive during a very difficult time, right? Yes. So it's very important for brands to understand this and also to be sensitive and to adapt to the environment that they're in. Very good. Thank you, Magana.
Can I add something?
Yes, please, Paz.
We speak a lot about the what the company try to do for the consumers, but also about the brand. It's also sorry, I'm confusing. It's also what they're trying to do for the workers, for the employees. So for my example, I used to work in EY as a strategy consultant. And now with all the situation, so they was really open to really take care for the employees and try not to fire a lot of people, and really try to be soft with each step. So it's also things that as an employee, I feel that my company, I can trust my company and the brand is strong, and yeah.
You know, that's an excellent point. So it's not only the external, ideas or actions a company take, but it's also internally within an organization, because how you treat your employees is very important, right? Respecting that we have a problem, it's beyond their control, but we need to take care of them during this difficult time. And so you as an employee will have more confidence and trust in your company, but then you will tell other people about that, and people learn about, quite to the contrary. There are examples here in the UK of companies when they have trouble, they just completely shut down and people lose their jobs. When you think of industries like tourism, right, and you think of hotel business and airlines, all of these companies are really struggling during these times. And obviously a company relies on making money, right? They cannot survive if they don't bring in revenue into the organization. So companies are really being tested now. How do they help their employees when they're not making revenue? So yes, it's both external and internal issues that have an impact on an organization, what they do internally to their employees and how they deal with employees, as well as externally what they do to help out, in terms of the bigger community or society as a whole. So yeah, that's a very good point, a very valid point. So what we can learn from that is both internal and external issues and how companies deal with those and react to a much bigger problem. So it's very important. It's important for the brand, and employees are an important part of a brand. Anybody else want to add anything? If not, this was only a 10-minute break, but I just needed to check back in with you. So, Adriana, what did we learn?
About the language, that's what we discussed last.
Yes.
It's very typical of Nike. They usually make statements in all of their adverts. But the imaging is very different in that usually they have a product that is like front and center, whereas here they've just made the message the main focus, and there's nothing to do with any of their products.
Very good point. Yes. Paz, you want to add anything to that? What did you learn from your session?
So we learn a lot, I think. Especially we talk about 6, the effectiveness of the achieving the objective, and we ask what does it mean effective? Effective is to have more money, or from the other hand, to make the audience to believe in themselves. And how can you know if they really start doing it? And then we talked about the ethical aspect of the effectiveness, and about social impact, that when you are a big organization like Nike, you can use your power to influence other people in a good way or in a bad way, and it really depends on you. And
Yeah. No, that's great. No, some great points. I just want to hear from others. That's excellent. Thank you, Paz. What about Milan? What did you learn from your discussion? You can't hide from me, Milan.
I know. I'm starting to realize that. So,
where is that? Is that Paris you're at now?
No, this is Hogwarts.
Oh, Hogwarts. Okay. I thought it was Notre Dame or something.
No, Oxford, okay. Hogwarts. Funny. Anyway,
okay.
What we learned about it,
what were the main takeaways from your discussion, or would you like to add anything to this print ad?
I mean, finding out well, for me personally, finding the specific target audience for an ad like that is kind of hard, because looking at that, I just think an ad like that is put out there to get not only attention from everybody, obviously, but to get it only causes a reaction into certain people that I don't feel fits a specific category, if that makes any sense. Like, there's going to be big reactions from everywhere. It's not like one little subsection, like young people, athletes, stuff like that.
Can we sometimes argue a case that we're not sure what the true, beliefs of an organization is when it could be quite opposite. I mean, think about organizations that say that they're environmentally conscious, for example, like banks, right? Yeah. Banks say that we are we're running a green organization. And how do they justify that? They say, well, we don't print paper. We don't send paper statements out to everybody. We send digital versions. So that's their argument for being a green company. So what I'm saying is, are consumers sometimes quite cynical about the true intentions of organizations or companies when they are marketing?
100%.
And what the message they're trying to say? Do they really believe? Are they trying to get attention? So what I'm saying is, sometimes more critical people or consumers think quite the opposite, right? Or companies are doing it just to get attention. And sometimes being controversial and getting attention actually means more revenue for an organization or a company, right? To be controversial. Anybody else got any thoughts about that?
I think, like with Black Lives Matter, I saw a lot of companies like releasing statements about it, and you could say they were just jumping on the bandwagon because they saw that everyone was supporting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So jumping on the bandwagon to be looking like you are politically correct as an organization is a possibility. So the important thing is we need to distinguish the difference between how consumers, react to these types of actions and messages that companies put out there. Do we have any other examples of that where we are not quite sure if the message is correct or the company really means what they are promoting or pushing out there? I mean, are they going to stand by that message, even if it means possibly that it could hurt the company because they could lose revenue. People, there could be consumers that they lose or customers that they lose by being controversial. So it's an important decision that companies make about their brands and how they market their brands and the type of communications that they put out there. We need to be very concerned or considerate about that. My background in the film business, generally working for the Walt Disney Company and being involved in the global strategy, was that we wanted to produce really neutral content. It would not have any impact on content that would be neutral in a sense that it wouldn't have an impact on people's religious beliefs, that it would be an ethical type of narrative that we would be putting out there, and a universal storyline that everybody would accept. So part of a company's role or consideration is to be rather neutral, or could be neutral. So taking a controversial position or supporting controversial brands and this is a question that I'm going to put out to this group here, and something to consider is what, supporting being socially or responsibly correct or being ethically correct. I put this question out there. I'd like to hear your opinions. Anybody? Magana? You come up with on my screen here, so that's why I'm choosing you.
I think that it would be best if like a company is ethically correct first before they are socially correct, because if they actually believe in what they're marketing, if they believe ethically, if some like any kind of when it comes to any kind of an issue, then they'll be able to market it in a way where they would be socially correct, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Yes, I kind of get your point. So, for example, BP's oil spill in the Gulf, right? I'm sure they did not intentionally try to do that, but it's the way they reacted to that issue. They started to point the finger at other people and other organizations that they were involved in, where ultimately BP was responsible for the oil spill. The same thing, well, this is a little bit more controversial, but VW and Dieselgate, right? When you try to cheat the emissions standards on your vehicles and advertise it as being, very green in a sense, or very environmentally conscious, people buy into that. But when one tries to do things that is not ethical in a sense, right? Or, for example, now we're all familiar with Nike and some of the controversial issues that they faced. I think it was in the 80s, maybe the 80s and 90s, was in their factories in Asia. They used child labor to manufacture some of their shoes and their brands, the brand products, and they try to hide that, right, and pay them. Obviously, using children in factories is absolutely unacceptable in the first place, or underage children. So that actually also harmed the Nike brand as well. So in that case, you are saying that ethically, it is more important to be ethically correct, but socially correct is moving to the next level, in a sense. I think that's what you were trying to say in your comment, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So the baseline is you need to be an ethically correct company.
Yeah.
Taking social steps about current or relevant issues, racial issues, for example, or a pandemic, is something where you're taking your company to another level, in a sense, right?
Yeah. So, like, if you're ethically correct, people will start trusting your brand a lot more first, and then when you raise your voice for social issues, people will take you more seriously, rather than thinking you're doing this just as jumping on a bandwagon or force fitting your brand into the message.
Anybody else got any other opinion on that? Adriana?
Yeah, I agree, because there was a few clothing companies as well who spoke out about Black Lives Matter, but their operations are very unethical. So it actually led to consumers sort of boycotting some of those brands. I think some of them were like Zara, H&M.
Primark was one.
Yeah, so they spoke out about it, but then there was backlash because they said people were saying, they're just doing it to get on board with the trend. I don't want to call it, but
So our concern, or what I'm hearing from both Adriana as well, is that to get what are your motivations for doing this is really important, and as customers and consumers, you have to put it across that you have good intentions. This is not just to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak, but is to do it to help out and to genuinely, do something that's relevant for society. Dyson, for example, everybody's heard of the Dyson brand, right? They make the vacuums, and they sort of put aside some of their engineering and factories to manufacturing, respirators, and to try and help out, repurpose their factories to help out with the pandemic and the needs, the needs and demands. So anybody else got any examples or points that they would like to make?
Yeah, can I add something?
Yes, sure. Amir. Hi, Amir.
Hi. I was waiting for my turn.
You're good. Thank you, Amir. Okay.
Okay, there was one ad from Hardee's almost like 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember the exact time period. They introduced something, a new product, which was related to their bun. They were introducing a new type of bun, but the way they advertised it, it was more close to look like a bun instead of a bun. So it created a lot of controversies in especially the area where I'm right now in Middle East. So it became very unethical for the people who are living over here, and a lot of consumer they boycotted the brand and they stopped buying it.
Mm-hmm. And what was the impact on the company in general? It had an impact beyond just this product, right?
Yeah, definitely. They lost their sale, and a lot of people stopped going there and consuming their product, and so they were forced to remove the advertisement within a week.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, that's a really good point and a good example to use. And as marketing managers and brand managers, you need to be really aware of that. I mean, how did something like that slip through the system, right? People who, if you have a marketing and branding department, there should be somebody reviewing these types of advertising, which are completely off the wall and, you know, are going to cause the wrong type of controversy.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very different.
The environment, like in what environment we are and what culture we are. I think it should be more like respecting the cultures.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why, this is a very good point, though. I'm asking everybody this question: how can we prevent these things from happening? That's more important. So I'm not saying Nike is completely different from a scenario that you present, right? Where marketing, we're talking about good brands, but the marketing company or the marketing group or the marketing division within an organization fails to see the negative impact of this advertising. What kind of measures can we put in place to prevent this? We're stretching this discussion. Yes, Magana.
So I think the first step, like for the example that Amir gave, would be to make sure that the marketing team includes people who know the culture of, the country or the place that the audience that you're trying to advertise to. So Absolutely. That if something of this sort is happening, they would be able to prevent it before it actually goes out and creates an issue. So I think that would be a first step.
Absolutely right. Yes. So there got to be measures put in place to prevent these types of things from happening, right? And it goes back to how the marketing departments or the people who are managing the brand. I mean, most companies have legal departments. I know that at the Walt Disney Company, the legal department was the biggest department, and nothing could go out into the market until the legal department within the organization reviewed every aspect of the product, the messages that were going to be presented, if there was any social or ethical or religious sensitivities that were being overlooked in the advertising. So yes, it's extremely important to have these ideas monitored because the impact of the brand, you can build a 100-year brand, but you can destroy a brand in a day or in a second, right? So there are plenty of examples of that. And, we like to talk about failures or examples of where things went wrong in branding and marketing. I always, in those of you taking global marketing strategy or who will take it, will know that we use a lot of cases and examples of where there have been failures. And that is really important to consider when looking at how to manage and not to make the same mistakes again. So anybody want to add anything? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is recreate the breakout groups, but you may be with some different people this time. And I'm going to put you in them for a longer period of time because I want you to go back and review the Nike ad, the print ad, but to sort of be very critical and analytical about it. So let me try and reestablish. Hello, everyone. I am very conscious that we are closing this seminar at 7:30. So what I wanted to do is, I hope you had a good time in your discussion groups and your breakout groups. And what I was hoping is if you could, one of you from each of the groups, or maybe two, if you want to, kind of sum up and tell me what you discussed and what some of the learning outcomes. I'm happy if you post them in the chat, or I see Adriana's on my screen here. I don't know why you always pop up on my front screen, but maybe you can tell us some of the learning outcomes from your discussion group.
Well, we thought that Nike did this campaign too late, because it was 2 or 3 years after that sports person whose name I can't remember took a knee. So they perhaps should have brought this campaign out at the time when this was happening. But then we also understand why they didn't, because a lot less people were speaking out about it then. So there was a lot more fear in that there would be a much bigger backlash. And from a business perspective, maybe that wasn't a viable risk for them to take to show their viewpoint at that time.
So was it a risky, so you're saying it was quite a risky sort of approach that Nike took?
No, because they did it now, 3 years later, when more people are talking about it, there was a lot less risk.
Lot less risk.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas if they had done it 3 years ago, when this sports person in their advert actually took a knee and there was no one to support him, they might have received a lot more backlash.
Okay, great. That's great input. Anybody else want to add to that? Are you in the same group as Milan, Julie, and Paz, right? I think.
No, I was in a different group this time.
Oh, you in a different group this time?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, you get to meet new people. Excellent. So it seems like, let me ask Paz. Paz, what group were you in and what did you discuss? Oh, we have Amir. Amir, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was in the group with Paula and Susanna. And
okay.
With the conclusion, there's nowadays brands want to remain in controversies because they like to remain in a trend, because the brands which are not on the trends, they just disappear. It's like, you can say it's like IBM, or you can say Nokia. So I think nowadays this is a trend of digital marketing. Everybody likes to remain in a trend. Once they are in trend, so they can reach to thousands of people in a very small budget.
So you are arguing, Amir, that being controversial is actually a good thing to do, a good strategy for a company and their brand. I mean, to get people's attention, possibly. Is that your argument?
Yeah, that's whole purpose of marketing, to get more attention.
Good point, right? It is a purpose of marketing. Yeah. So that's an interesting point you make, Amir. A very interesting point. Good. Because, thank you. Okay. You want to add to that? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because nowadays the younger generation, their all attentions are towards what is viral, what is trendy. Like nowadays, a lot of people, everything is on Instagram. Whatever the trend is, whatever the meme is, they're following. So it becomes a brand after some time, and it also becomes a part of their beliefs. Like BLM. A lot of people were not in USA, but a lot of people from another countries were supporting the BLM campaign. So this is how I think where the attention is. This is the whole purpose of marketing, to gain the more attention and to make it more trendy.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting comments, Amir. Something that we could spend hours talking about. But the interesting thing is, when we look at marketing, we also look at demographics. So you may be talking about millennials or people in your age demographic, but put yourself in the shoes of an older demographic, possibly, right? Generation X or the baby boomers or whatever, the much older generation. Do you think that they react the same way as well, or is this specifically something that gets the attention of, say, a millennial demographic?
I think it's more like millennial demographic, because this is what this Nike main idea is all about.
Mm-hmm.
They have to reach the more organic audience.
Mm-hmm. It's important. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
The older generation, of course, they are not following the sportsmen as the younger generation are following.
Mm-hmm. Very valid point, Amir. Thank you. That's sort of an interesting perspective. But also in terms of generations, and certainly in marketing, we always need to be focused. We need to understand who the target audience is talking and referring to. So for the millennials, we can potentially argue a case that Amir is suggesting. So thanks, Amir. Anybody else want to add anything? Milan, what do you think about that?
I mean, because what we mostly talked about, we didn't actually finish the questions, the last two at least, like with the symbolism and then the language, and so we just mostly talked about, or tried to talk about, the language and the symbolism, like symbolism of the face is like his eyes staring straight at you. Like I was thinking, if you look at someone in the eyes, it can tell you a lot about them, shows like confidence, like honesty is what Paz brought up. And so we mostly just centered around that as far as like what we were talking about.
Going back to what Amir had said about the controversy and the brand taking on a controversial position, is that attractive to a younger generation?
I feel like it is, because a lot of because as you grow up, like past the age when you get into your teens, you tend to rebel or something like that. Like anything that's the opposite of what you should be doing is the cool thing to do.
Whatever your mother or father tell you, do the opposite, right?
Exactly. So I feel like a little of that can play into marketing that can affect a big demographic like that, and can even leave an impact that will maybe even stay with those people who they will mature eventually, but that message could still be stay with them. And so that marketing tactic could be more useful than not if everybody's doing it, which it kind of seems like nowadays. Sometimes
I think, I agree what you're saying, but I think in general, this is a broader demographic than just millennials. I also think that the message sinks into to older generation as well.
Yeah.
The message that racial inequality is not a good thing. And I think that it's a much wider demographic than just the millennials, right?
Yeah.
And also, but the millennials may be going, this is great. This is rebellious. We love this.
Oh.
So it's important to know who you are targeting when you are putting out advertising. And so I believe that Amir is arguing that that this was aimed, or the target audience was millennial age group. Do you think that? I mean, it could be. Do you think so? I mean, in terms of the print ad, the way it was designed, the messages, the colors used in the advertising. What do you think?
I would say so. I would agree with that, because I don't think it's because I'm trying to also think of it from the other side of, is it for the older demographic? and I'm trying to think of things that would mostly not necessarily appeal to them, but would catch their attention more than millennials. And I feel like this appeals to millennials more than it would any other generation, specifically because, I mean, it's short and sweet. Like, attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So I feel like that's definitely in there. So, I mean, as well as, like, nowadays, the narrative seems like we should all have a just cause, like, to something, not something like necessarily to believe in, but like something to spur us on. And so it's like a call to action that we should all like jump on board with, kind of. And the millennials demographic, marketing wise, seem to be that type of let's jump on this, because I don't want to call it a trend, like, let's jump on this
social issue.
Social trend. Basically, and do something about it, pretty much.
Good. Thanks, Mo. Thanks for your input. Anybody else want to add anything? Julie? Faz?
Nah, he pretty much covered everything.
I think I've covered everything. Are we exhausted from this ad and this topic?
Yeah.
You think so?
My brain is frazzled.
My brain is frazzled. That's a good sign. That means that you really use your brain, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, on that note, I think, we are close to wrapping up the session here because we ended at 7:30. So I want to thank everybody for attending and for participating. And just a heads up for next week, depending if you're going to be online or regardless if you're going to go to face-to-face, if you just do your reading and preparation from the reading list, and so that you come prepared for the seminar, so that we can have a great discussion like we had today. It'll be a similar type of setup. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope everybody learn something, and also can walk away with some interesting thoughts as well. So on that note, we'll see you next week then. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.